Hello. Maybe many of you have heard that Colombia finally signed a peace agreement with the FARC, the oldest guerrilla group in the world, 2 years ago. And because of this, many good things happened to Colombia. Obviously, we have less casualties than ever, less deaths, and less victims in the whole history of Colombia. But those are the obvious things that are happening in Colombia. And we've been very involved working with the government in the peace since the past 10 years, doing a lot of strategies and working side by side with the president. But besides that, the president came last year to Cannes to explain how did he use the creativity to bring peace in our country. Obviously, as I told you, many good things are happening, but I would like to tell you about the not obvious things that are happening in Colombia. For example, we have discovered 89 new species, nature species in Colombia from regions that we haven't reached before. Second of all, we have reached new communities that were totally isolated because used to be located where the conflict was going on. And the third, that we have discovered new places in Colombia. Just to give you an example, 1/3 of Colombia is under discovered because of the war, and we are right now discovering all those places. This is why this is relevant to our case. It's because in all those regions, in all these areas, are living 16 million people. Imagine that is putting together the total population of Norway and Sweden in a single place. Okay, so all these people used to be or are the purest people in Colombia with lack of education, lack of access to information, of course, lack of opportunities in our context. So, working with the government and the agency, we realized that probably bringing internet to all these people in all those areas could integrate the Colombians in this new area, which is very important too. But the government started to work in the penetration of internet in our country, and there's a huge number of, right now, internet connections in Colombia. More than 30 million connections we have in Colombia, which is huge. But it's not enough, because 84% of all those internet connections are located in only 5 areas in Colombia. We have 36 states, and only 5 states took or takes the 84% of all these internet connections. So, but we also realize that even being a problem, there is a huge opportunity. That in Colombia there are more cell phones than people, and the penetration is higher than the internet. People like these guys that use legacy phones, the old devices to connect each other in a daily life, and the thing is that all those devices, they don't have 3G or 4G technology to get access to the internet. So that's where my lines comes to us as an idea to provide the internet solutions to those people who live in the remote areas with no access to traditional or smartphones.
So, what is my line? As you may saw in the video case we sent over with our entry, my line is a traditional telephone landline that anyone in Colombia can call, no matter the moment or the device. I mean, it's 24/7. And basically, what we want to do is to give access to poor people to the biggest web searcher in the world, as we do every day in our smartphones. But to make this a reality, we have a couple of challenges that we wanted to highlight with you today. And the first challenge we have is this one, to pass from a keynote to a prototype. Because when it was the idea on paper and when the creative team showed me up the idea, we both loved the idea, but we started thinking on how to make it. So we had a meeting with the engineers back at the agency and asked them for two things. We explained the line, of course, we explained them the idea, and we asked them for portability and for scalability specifically. So after almost a month, they came back to our office with this prototype. This is the very first prototype that we made for the line. As you see, it's a very archaic model. This was an account executive computer from the agency. This was a Raspberry Pi. I don't know if all of you, I guess you all know what a Raspberry Pi is. It was using the broadband from the agency, and at that time, the prototype just received one call at a time. So we laughed when start to talk on how to make the idea a reality, and we start to call other engineers, not only within the agency but outside, on how can we make it, because we weren't so sure of how to make it. And after almost 4 months, they came back, a group of engineers came back with this simple infography. This is how the line works now. So basically the color comes from any device And there's a Twilio. I don't know if you're familiar with Twilio. Twilio is a paid app. It's a US-based app. They assign you a line. So what basically Twilio does is that they let us receive as many calls as possible. So Twilio works as a call center in the cloud. So Twilio gets all the clouds, send it to our software. We develop that software. Our software transforms voice into data and send it to Google Assistant. Google Assistant works as usual, and it goes back the process in the opposite. Google Assistant send the data to our software transforms into voice, send it to Twilio gets and plays it in a call. Of course, that happens in milliseconds, and the most important part here is this, because this is what we really developed, and this is a little bit of what happens inside. I'm not an engineer, so I'm not getting too deep into this. But this is basically the flow of the information that happens inside that blue circle that you saw. Yes, this happened, of course, in milliseconds because the line is down. So the challenge 2 is go and get the number. This became like kind of an obsession for us. If we're going to promote the line, if we're going to promote the biggest web search in the world, which is Google, why don't we choose something like this that the number looks like the Google to promote our line. So it was a really tough task, but with the help of the ministry and with the help of the presidency, we finally got these 3 numbers. Right now we own these 3 numbers back in the agency, so we can use it. Of course, it's only in Colombia. And the third challenge was, let's make it big. Why? Because the agency founded financially, we funded the very first prototype, but when the idea was conceived was to make a real social impact and to help the problem that Juan Pablo told you before. That's why we went to the president. We went to the president, and he totally got on board with this, because he found out like an opportunity to help the peace, to make the change peace, because the agreement of peace was signed like 2 years ago. But right now we're struggling on how the peace is working in those new communities that Juan Pablo told before. So the president got on board and helped us financially and helped us contacting with the Ministry of Technology. But where are we now and where we want to go? Right now we're in phase 1. So right now the line receives 500 calls at the same time. On a phase 2, we would love to have up to unlimited calls. And in the dream phase, we call it dream phase because this is not planned. It would be great if we have unlimited calls, but not only in Colombia, but globally. Right now, we have the Colombian number. We are owners of the 3 numbers I show you. On the phase 2, we're going to get in deep in Colombia because it's a really big task. And on a dream phase, it would be great if the line can go global. We can buy the number 600 or the 900 across the whole country. And right now, it only works in Spanish. Google has told us that the Google Assistant works way better in English than in any other language in the world. That's why we're planning to do it in English also. The rate of speaking English in Colombia is not that high. That's why we plan first in Spanish. And in the dream phase, of course, it would be great if it works in any language. Right now, and this is a very important point, right now it's a collect call. Right now it's a paid call. It's not free for users. I mean, they don't need to pay directly to the line, but it works like when you spend your data or you spend your minutes in your mobile plan. That's because we are with the Ministry of Communication. That's why we are with the Ministry of Communication. They provide us the line, but right now it's so in phase 2. We're already having conversations. It's not yet a partnership, but it would be great if we can partnership with a telco, so the service could be for free. So the purpose would be greater. And in a dream phase, we thought about multiple partnerships, and that's why, because we started receiving, since the line was launched like a couple of months ago, we started to receive emails and calls from different people that saw potential on the line that we didn't see before. For example, we got an email from a foundation who works for blind people with the view disability, so they found it useful, the line for them. This is a use that we never thought before. We also had a call from a guy that owns it's not a foundation, but it's like a company who supports Venezuelan immigrants to go to, who go to Colombia. You know, they go to Colombia and they have nothing, so they found a cheaper way to help them. We also was contacted by the National University of Colombia, who has a program to help indigenous communities to bring technology. Oh, sorry. Okay. Well, okay. Can you just say one thing? Okay, perfect.
We can lead straight into the question.
Okay. So now let's try the line. If you want to try it. Sorry, what?
The people in the country that would use this, do they have lots of minutes in their phone plans? Like, is it a possible thing for them to utilize, or is it still a privilege?
You mean the minutes?
Yeah.
No, they use it, but sometimes they're not in postpaid. I don't know how to say it in English.
Prepaid.
Correct, but it's prepaid. Yeah.
But
Everyone has a lot of minutes.
it is
Yes,
very common.
yes.
It's very cheap to bring the telcos has very cheap ways to have prepaid programs for the people, so it is very common. It's not a problem.
You said it's a blank call, right?
Yeah, right now.
Yeah. Please.
Amazing. Congratulations. In terms of activation, how do you get people to start using the service?
We're promoting the line through posters, you know, because of the places we haven't reached. But we're planning to do regional television, you know, those focus channels that are on specific regions, and we're doing it, and we're still going to do it
And the
because
ministry-
the government is behind us, so they help us with it.
The ministry has its own media. Radio is very potential in Colombia, for example. Is the main radio actually, and the main media which goes to the deep in the villages and all this stuff. So it's very strong from having the support of the ministry.
How immediate is the response from question to answer?
So what?
The delay from question to answer, how much time?
We can try if you want.
Yeah.
It's very simple. So
Is there something for the
uh,
World Cup?
so we have here the app, and we call it, and I will show you.
It's in Spanish, so.
Yeah. Somebody speak Spanish from you?
Hola, bienvenido a mi línea Power by Google. Pregúntame lo que quieras después del tono y al terminar tu pregunta presiona la tecla numeral. ¿Estamos listos? ¿Qué me quieres preguntar hoy?
¿Qué partidos de la Copa Mundo se juegan hoy?
He's gonna about the matches of the World Cup today.
Mi línea Power by Google está buscando tu respuesta. Hoy a las 8 de la mañana, Suecia jugará contra Corea del Sur en el grupo
Sweden
F.
is playing
Hoy a
against
las
South
11 de la
Korea.
mañana, Bélgica se enfrentará a Panamá en el grupo G. Y hoy a las 2 de la tarde,
Yeah, cool. I mean, I love it. I think it's great. Do Google know about it? Are they endorsing it? I guess they have limits to stop people massively using their systems without their permission.
Yeah, obviously they know, and we've been working together. Actually, we sent up a letter to the jury. I don't know if you saw it, saying what Google is promoting the line, but they are not very interested to have the brand under the project because the owner and the creators are the Ministry of Technology and us. So they prefer to be behind us. They are giving us all the support in the back end to make it bigger and bigger, and so on.
Great presentation. Just on that point about Google actually, so Google have Project Loon, where obviously they want to deliver internet coverage to some of these more rural places. Have you talked to them about that? And because of that, do you see this as an interim technology? What do you see the longevity of this?
Yes, actually, as was an initiative from us and not for Google, we at the very first stage we never thought about how other Google products they have, and that's mainly because of what Juan Pablo just said. is that Google, that's why want to be behind us and not to launch like a Google product, because they have a lot of ongoing products very similar to this one. So they want, I guess, they want to compete to one product to each other.
Well, I'm not sure if you got the right answer, because
I was just thinking there will be new technology. There is other technology that will supplant this. Is this an interim? Do you see it as an interim solution to a current problem? When Google and Facebook, etc., are delivering internet coverage for these areas,
the thing is that even that Google can increase the number of internet penetration in our country, what the people is using right now is the kind of the device to get in contact with each other. So this is a different problem, and Google is not solving that. So what we know is that the behavior right now is that the people prefer those traditional and old devices because are cheaper than the other ones. So we are solving that problem instead of the internet.
So this is for people with feature phones, not smartphones?
No, it's working with smartphone. Actually, it's a smartphone, but what the people uses is the old one.
This solution started off.
The solution started off as an offering to people living in a poor area, and at the moment the users have to pay for the call, right? And you're hopefully moving to the free call. So when eventually you move on to the phase where it's free calls for the users, who's going to pay for the calls?
Well, having the Minister of Technology behind, and we are working right now with a partnership with a telco. They will support the free call for them, so they don't have to. So it's like a decision to make it free, and that's it.
Do you know who are the people that use this service? And second question, do you adapt the answers like the machine learning to these requests?
Yes, unfortunately, in this stage, we cannot, as is a traditional landline and not a geographical location, we cannot know from where the calls are right now. But we have data about, Twilio, the platform I talked to you, Twilio records all the questions, Twilio records the genre from the questions, the age, the stats of the questions. Actually, I have some of the stats there. But right now, geolocation is not possible because it's a traditional landline. The other data, yeah, we collect it, and Twilio helps us to collect that data.
But the thing is that we convert voice into data, and then what Google does is to give us the best answer possible. So, but the process of machine learning that we usually have at Google in our lab is not happening right now because they don't have a feedback. So this is like an important step because, for example, we can ask give me the best price possible of this, and Google will give you whatever he believes at the moment, and that's it. That's what is happening right now. But this is like a new way or new step of the process.
In the area it's in place now.
What's the real impact to the users who live in those poor areas? Because they didn't have internet before, and now with this, they can access.
Yeah, I will tell you, for example, most of the areas where we are implementing this used to be former areas where the conflict was going on. And many of them used to plant cocaine, for example, and then replacing the cocaine fields into sugarcane, for example, palm trees or whatever. So one of the uses they are taking is, I want to know the price, how much do I have to sell the sugarcane every single day in the morning. This is the kind of information they are asking to the platform. As Carlos told you, we can record all the information, and this is the kind of the question they are doing right now.
Of course, if you hear the questions, it's funny because there's also dumb questions like the one we all do to Google.
Very good. All right, thank you.